Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Ciccarelli, the CEO and co-founder of Voices. Today, we're here for office hours, and office hours happens on the last Friday of every month. And so it's the last Friday of May, and that's why we're here. And today, we're going to talk all about voiceover rates. Now, if you're a voice actor, learning the craft is one thing, what goes into your home studio, acting and performance, but eventually you're going to land that gig. And when you do, you're going to want to know how much to charge that client if they're really interested in working with you. So today we're going to unpack that topic. It's probably one of the most common questions of what should I charge? And equally, those clients or producers that are looking to hire you, and they're going to ask you that question quite often. How much does it cost for this project or that project? So be sure to pay attention over the next kind of couple minutes here. Take lots of notes. I would encourage you to do so. So a couple quick items off the top. I always have a notepad in front of me to be able, and with a pen in hand, to be able to jot those notes down. I would encourage you to do the same thing today. I'm going to drop a lot of nuggets, some resources that you might want to check out as well too. So keep eyes and ears open for that. I've already seen a couple of people asking questions in the chat here on YouTube Live. So I'd love if you could continue to do that. And I'm joined by Andrew. Andrew is our community manager here at Voices. And he's going to be helping me out in terms of, and all of you out, making sure that your questions do get answered by putting them into a separate document that he and I are both collaborating on in real time. So if you see me glancing down, that's what I'm doing, just making sure I'm doing my best to cover all of your questions there. So we've got a couple already that have actually been come from social media as well as here on YouTube Live. But I do want to just address some background on rates as a whole. So, voiceover rates are going to be so critical for as a freelance and professional talent. You ultimately know kind of what you charge for any given project. And I want to give you some ways to think about that, to make sure that you're honoring and respecting yourself, that you're charging, a fair rate for your time and energy. And most importantly, how wide of an audience is going to hear your recording. And that's actually a really key point, which I want to address, which is voiceover is not necessarily charged or priced to the client on how much time it took you to do the recording. In fact, it's actually more about the audience. And so keep that in mind. It's just because recordings can sometimes be 1 or 2 words. Sometimes they can even be a minute long, but it might be worth $500 for that 1 minute of recording. And that's because the audience that's hearing it, that's where the value is being delivered. And so we'll go through some examples of that. But having a rate sheet at the ready is going to save you a lot of time when kind of determining, hey, how much should I charge for this project? Especially if you're auditioning online on a platform like Voices, then absolutely you're going to want to have a kind of a quick reference guide. So when I use the term rate sheet, that's really all I'm referring to is a reference guide. It could be a 1-page Google Doc or Word document, could be a spreadsheet that you created. And we've taken the initiative to create what's in some ways become a very popular reference guide. Whether it's kind of the industry standard, we try to reflect that as much as possible. And that's available at the bottom of every page on voices.com. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see rate sheet, I believe is what it's referred to. And maybe, Andrew, you can just drop a link in the chat as well, too, so everyone can get a quick access to that. But this is a downloadable PDF. Not only is it a page that you can view online, but there's also a downloadable PDF that you can access. And then if you want to, again, copy and paste that into something more editable, that's for you to choose to do. So first off, the rate sheet that's kind of what we're referring to, kind of a reference guide of prices for any manner of projects. Now, some of you might be asking, well, how did we even kind of come up with these numbers in the first place? And as always, there's a bit of a story here. When we started Voices, it was really a kind of a 2-person startup, and that has become quite really an influential player within the voiceover and kind of creative services market. And throughout that time, we've realized that there's a lot of challenges and questions around how to price different projects. So in the earliest days, we actually ran a survey to figure out, hey, how much would you charge for this project and that project? What are the factors that you go in to consider? And we aggregated all of that into what's now become this rate sheet. Of course, we averaged out some of the prices. We made sense of some of the different bands of where the rate might range between $500 and $750, if you will. So that's what the rate sheet kind of came from, was a survey of professional working talent, reflecting back, here's what I would charge for these kind of projects. Over the years, though, we've actually found that, we needed to maintain that. So now we've actually looked at the actual job data on Voices to say, hey, what's the average price, not what someone's quoting, but what's the actually going rate for a radio commercial or for an audiobook? And so that's actually what's now kind of most reflected. We've tried to take, set these brackets around a suggested budget for the client, which in effect is your suggested rate of what you might want to be quoting for that particular project. So we started with the survey, and we've moved on over the years to being made more data informed and data driven. And that's the rate sheet that you have here in front of you today. From time to time, we actually do update that. And in fact, there's a number of projects that tend to be quoted above that range as well too. As much as, some clients, maybe they're, that's why we have a range. Some of them might be more budget conscious. They just need something quick, done quickly. It's not necessarily going to a big audience, in which case they might be more conservative and cost conscious. And then on the higher end, I think it's reasonable to believe that, the more I'm willing to pay for a service, that I would be attracting higher caliber talent as well too. So that's why we have a range. We're just trying to provide the full spectrum. So if you can take a moment to actually check out that rate sheet. And I just want to explain kind of how this is actually structured. So I'm going to pull in a whiteboard here, and we'll see how this goes. Because when thinking about rates, let's see if we can more or less get this on here where we can both be on at the same time. When you're thinking about rates, there's kind of the initial fork in the road. And we're going to have broadcast and non-broadcast is kind of the first thing. So I'm going to go non-broadcast and broadcast. Okay? Because non-broadcast jobs are all the various work that is not going to be an advertisement, and it's not going to air. It's kind of like all projects other than TV, radio, or internet ads. They're going to be considered non-broadcast. These are things like phone systems, corporate training videos, maybe an audiobook also might fit into there. There's not a media spend or an ad buy behind it. So it's all of that kind of industrial, non-commercial applications. And those are going to be in this non-broadcast category. So for these, they're actually going to be priced on often a per word basis or a per finished minute. So we got word or finished minute. And why, and you'll note, it's not how much time it took you. Often these voiceover jobs, it's not, it took me 3 hours in the studio. It's how much, what's the value that you're delivering is that intellectual property. So it's per word, which is a really easy way to, if you get a script and the client asks you, hey, how much would it cost to get this script done? You can basically load it up into Google Docs or Microsoft Office and go, oh, Word doc, how many, check the word count with under the tools menu, and you'll see, oh, it's 500 words. Okay, so it's probably a couple pages of copy. Right away, you can reference either a rate sheet on Voices, or if you want to create your own, and you can go, oh, 500 words is probably going to be in the neighborhood of $250 to $500. Okay, so that kind of sets the expectation. Sometimes clients will come to you and say, hey, I've got a 5-minute video of actual recorded time. The video is 5 minutes, and you're wondering, well, how many words is that, and what would I that charge? Similarly, you can glance down at that suggested budget, and then you would see that in fact it's somewhere in that neighborhood of about $500 as well. So that's for all of the non-broadcasts. Just remember that it's priced per minute or per minute or on a word count, and we've set up those ranges just so it's not overly precise. It's somewhere within that ballpark. So hopefully that was helpful as a quick tip. Next up, though, we want to talk about broadcast, and broadcast are those projects that relate to something airing on television or radio or an internet ad, and there's some time of media spend or advertisement that's to pay for that airtime. And so there's the production cost of getting the voiceover done, but then that client is going to be running the ads for a period of time, often 3 weeks or 1 year or somewhere, or really indefinitely, which is referred to as in perpetuity. And so because of that, there's this matrix that I wanted to draw for you that's going to help you see where maybe, depending on some factors, like why prices might be higher and why you should be quoting higher as well too. So for broadcast then, there's a couple things. The first thing is the duration of how long is this going to be running for. So let's call this usage duration. The client saying, I want to use this ad for 13 weeks, 1 year, or forever, which I said is the industry term is in perpetuity. So if you use that and hear that term, that's what it means. They want to have permission to be able to use that forever, in perpetuity. Then on the vertical axis, then we actually have the market size. So let's just call that size, and that's going to be local, national, or even global. Okay, so the longer it's being used and the wider the audience, that's going to drive price just as well as the media. So this is where you would have radio, TV, and internet or web. Depending on which media format it is, that's also going to influence the price being higher, because again, voiceover isn't charged by the time or energy that you spent producing the recording. It's how big is the audience and how long are they going to be hearing your voice live out there in the world, and you're promoting that brand, and that brand is benefiting from your voice over that period of time through all those media channels. And that's why the price is higher, and you should therefore be quoting higher on those particular jobs. So that's kind of that just wanted to set up the basis for answering some of the questions that I know are coming in. And so let's go to that right now. I'm going to wheel this out of the way, and if I need to pull it in again, we can certainly do that. All right. So Dylan Wheeler asks from Instagram, how do you know what you're worth, especially if you're don't have a professional, kind of a non-professional or recording studio quite yet? So this concept of what you're worth, I think over time you're going to gain more confidence that someone hired you for close to these industry standard rates. Again, I would refer you to a rate sheet on Voices. There's other ones that are out there as well too that are a little more robust and kind of a lot more detail in them. The most popular one would be the GVAA rate sheet. There's a lot of detail in there. We've heard sometimes that can be overwhelming, but if you want a little bit more simplified view of that is frankly pretty close to the rates seem to align up in most parts, would be the voices.com rate sheet. It's just a more simplified view, can be a little bit more accessible for, again, new talent entering into the space, but both are great. So I would answer that, Dylan, as, knowing what you're worth. I think it's not about what you're worth. It's what the industry as a whole is deeming a voiceover is worth. Now, if at the beginning, sometimes an approach has been, okay, well, I'm going to go below market rate, kind of below the standard in hopes of kind of getting that first job. Now, generally speaking, I'd actually advise against that. It sets a couple bad precedents. One, you've inadvertently trained that client that, oh no, you've devalued rates. I know that wasn't your intention, but you've kind of set them to believe that, oh yeah, I can get something for $5 or $25 or $50. So we don't want that to happen. And certainly, because then that kind of drags the whole industry down. And so that's why having these kind of rate sheets that have been circulated and people, talent out there embracing them, really maintains a floor, and then it goes up based upon some of those dimensions I had just shared. So I would encourage you to try to quote and charge what the rate sheets that you can find are providing as a great reference point for you. Okay, great. So a girl is ... from Instagram asks, what quote is considered too high, especially when you're a novice. So a quote that might be too high would be if a client says, hey, I've got a budget between $500 and $750. I would consider a quote, and they give you the scope of work and you maybe reference that against a sheet and you realize, okay, yeah, that seems like what most people are charging, maybe what Voices is recommending. I would say what would be too high would be going outside that range. So if the client's given a reasonable budget, one thing you can do is just quote smack right in the middle of the budget. If they said between $500 and $750, maybe you come back and like, hey, I can do this for $600. I would definitely stay within the range that they're looking for. Going outside of it, you would have to frankly justify that in some way. It's like, I could do it, but I've got a backlog of 5 other projects. If you want me to expedite this, which means kind of get it done faster, or I can get it done, overnight or over the weekend, I could do it, but it's gonna cost a premium because I've need to maybe juggle some other things around or stay later in my home studio than I was anticipating. So people generally understand, a client would understand that if they really want to hire you and they need to get it done, and they're really asking for you to accommodate their short timeline, that they would be willing to pay a premium. So that's when I would think if you're not kind of doing that rush type project and you're charging outside of maybe what they were thinking, I would consider that to be too high. But that's why there's those ranges. They kind of act as a bit of goalposts for you to work within. Okay, TunixVO from Instagram asks, would you consider raising the minimum job fee so that the lowest a talent could make is $100 once again? So just to provide some context for everyone listening here today and viewing here on YouTube Live as we talk all about rates, Tunix is referring to the entry-level budget range that we have on voices.com, where a client goes and posts a job, they describe what they're looking for, and as they get to the bottom of that job form, they actually do pick a budget range. They actually have 2 options. They can give a fixed budget, in which case the minimum is $100, or they can pick a budget range which says, oh, I'm not really sure. I kind of want a variety of talent. I want a spectrum of kind of quality and caliber and skills. So I'm going to go between 100 and 250. So we have fixed budget and budget range. Those are the 2 options. If they, in either situation, the minimum client budget is $100. Now, when you are asking here, Tunix, about what's the lowest a talent can make, as you know, there's a 20% platform fee for work that you actually win on Voices. So your take-home amount, kind of money in your pocket, or that we would send to you by PayPal or by check, however you want to get paid, would actually be $80. So I think that's a great point, that we're always looking at how do we actually keep that threshold so that every job's at least worth $100 to you. Right now, it's the client is saying 100, and then there's that platform fee of 20. If you want to set your own minimum of 100, then you should be quoting higher. So if the client gives a range and they say, oh yeah, I'm actually pretty fun, I'm cool anywhere between $100 and $250, well, then you should put that in at 125 or 130, and then you would end up with $100 as your take-home amount. So that would be a way to work around that as well too. So hopefully you find that helpful. Tunix, thanks so much for asking the question. All right, we have Bhupinder from Instagram is asking, how do we get to know the genre that our voice is most suitable for? And maybe the subtext there is, hey, the one where I can also probably generate the most income. I'm good at it. I'm getting paid for it, and I'm creating a career here. So one way you can do about that is think about that is, if you're on Voices, maybe check out which of your demos that you've uploaded into your profile, what we now call, like, your profile has a portfolio of different samples that you have, and seeing which of the demos that are actually getting listened to the most. That's your first indication of success. Hey, I'm being found, I'm being listened to. So that's going to give you an indication. If you're also a premium subscriber on Voices, we actually unlock a whole analytics suite. We give you lots of statistics. And in these statistics, you'll know when you audition for jobs, how many you have been listened to, how many have been liked, which means the client adds you to their short list. It used to be a thumbs up, but now they're kind of creating these short lists. So that means that they liked you. You're kind of in the final running. And then, of course, the hires. Which jobs am I getting hired for? And so those are some indications that are right away going to inform you, hey, I seem to be having a knack for these short, 60-second explainer videos. I should really be doing more of those so that when you see the next audition come up for that, you're probably going to pounce on that one first. So that would be what I would suggest is make a data-informed decision. If you're not yet on Voices, and maybe another way you can, kind of come to a similar conclusion is actually working with a coach and asking a coach. Maybe you kind of do a number of different reads for them, or kind of send some pre-recorded material, and them with a kind of a trained ear, whether it's a coach or a producer or a casting director. You can actually hire people a lot on it as kind of a consultation or a freelance basis themselves, and say, hey, I'm just looking for some feedback, but that feedback actually might be worth the cost for that short consultation. It might be a couple hour session on Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or Skype even, but doing a virtual session where they can help set you on the right path. And it's way easier to be set on the right path at the beginning than kind of trying to do all different genres and not feeling like you're getting any traction. Getting that advice from someone else and then having the support from the data, I think, is going to go a really long way. Great question. Incognito from Instagram. Love the name, Incognito. What are the ways to get rid of the hissing S sound when speaking? All right, so not necessarily about rates, but let's cover it anyway. So the S sound is referred to as sibilance. And sibilance is basically air passing through often your teeth, or, kind of if your mouth is kind of closed, you're going to hear this hissing sound. So if you've ever done a hiss sound like a snake would make, you'll hear kind of this sibilance in a very exaggerated way. Now, how you might want to get rid of that, there's a couple things that you can do. First off, I would encourage you to actually use some kind of like pop filter or windscreen. That might help a little bit. Another thing, if you're finding it's kind of like almost creating static in some of your recordings, there's a technical solution, which is you could turn your gain down slightly, meaning the level of which the microphone's picking up. Maybe it's kind of too hot, if you know what I'm saying. And because it's too hot, maybe it's exaggerating again these hissing sounds. So that's something I would check your levels there. You don't want to have them spiking in your recording software. And that's caused by these S's. Another thing you can do that has nothing to do with technology is actually how I have the microphone set up right now, which is the microphone is what's referred to as off axis. On axis would be directly in front of me. Off axis means the microphone's over here and I'm kind of speaking in front. And that means that the P's, which are the plosives, and the S's, which is the sibilance, it's going kind of in this direction, but the microphone's more kind of picking up my throat and my mouth and jaw, and the sound's kind of coming out that way. So that would be a way that you might be able to get rid of some of those S's. Give that a go. There's other kind of some funny things around, like, again, too much saliva in your mouth, eating a green apple, these kind of tricks. You can find a bunch of them on our blog, actually, about tricks for, kind of clean recordings and getting rid of mouth noises. So that's voices.com/blog. You can search the whole blog for that. But I would look at the word sibilance. And in particular, our great colleague, Randy Rector, has a awesome video all of just about sibilance. And he talks about that. And it's one of these things that when you start kind of tuning your ear and you're listening for it, you almost kind of hear it quite a lot. So check that one out as well. Well, I just want to welcome some new people to the YouTube Live Office Hours. This is David Ciccarelli, and we're at voices.com. And every Friday, the last Friday of every month, I should say, we get together and we talk open kind of Q&A where questions are set ahead of time or they're done live in the chat. I'm also here with Andrew. Andrew's kind of monitoring the chat there, and he's our community manager. So if you have other questions, I'm going to do my best to get to all of them today here in Office Hours. But in his role as a community manager, we actually have recently launched a whole community forum. And I wanted to encourage you to pick up the conversation and ask some of those questions that we're having here. Get some other feedback from some pros. And you can go to community.voices.com and simply log in there. You can use your same login information that you have for voices.com, the main website. You can use that on the community forum, and you can ask away some of these other questions if you want a second opinion, or you didn't like my answer. Either way, I would encourage you to check out that community forum to hear from other members of the Voices community. So Herbal Luke from Instagram also asks, how do I audition without having to pay a premium and pay for a premium membership? So Herbal's noticed that there's really tiers of membership on voices.com. There's a guest membership, in which case you can create a profile and you're in what I would call a wait and see mode. You've got all the information there, but you're waiting for the client to actually discover you, either through our search engine, maybe on our top 100 list, maybe some of the directories that we have, or even they could have done a Google search and landed right on your profile. And so once they're on your profile, Herbal Luke is noticing, it's like, oh yeah, okay, a client can invite me. Every now and then I might get a few auditions, but I'm really getting into this. I actually want to audition every day, like 10, 20 times a day, which what a lot of the pros are actually doing. So for that, we do reserve the ability to proactively respond to all the job opportunities on Voices, of which there's about 5,000 jobs a month at this point. We reserve those for the premium memberships. So premium memberships are $500 a year. You can go on the website and kind of see the breakdown of all the features and benefits of the premium membership. So I'd encourage you to check that out. From time to time, of course, we send out discount codes or promotional offers that might save you $50 or $100. But that's kind of the premium membership. It really is reserved to, I'm going to say, semi-pros or pros, people once they have their home studio set up, they've done some training, they've got their demos all in order. That's, you can do all that for free in the guest membership. But once you've kind of got those basics in place, you're going to be in a great spot and be ready to be auditioning on a daily basis for jobs. And we match jobs and send them to you based upon the information in your profile. So that's why it's really critical to have great information in your profile. And every job is going to include, as we're talking about rates today, every job is going to include a rate range or a budget range of how much that client is thinking about. Like, hey, ballpark, this is what I'm thinking I have to spend and invest in a voiceover. And so you can use that range to determine, okay, well, this is what I'm going to quote for it. And so that is really the topic today of how to inform and equip you with the information on quoting on voiceover jobs. So to explain later is a question, to explain later 95, a community member from also following us on Instagram is asking, what's the minimum software equipment expectations? And then help me build from there. So we were just talking about how important it is before you start auditioning, you want to have probably a pretty decent setup. And what I refer to as a decent setup is most importantly, actually no technology. It's the importance of having a quiet room. You want to have a room, a space in your home or your apartments or your loft, your condo, wherever you are, that is quiet. And what I mean by that is that there isn't, external noise coming into your space. So think fire engines or, a train ripping by outside, or these kind of loud street sounds. Okay. So we want to be, be as far away from that as possible. And then we also want to minimize noises inside our home or our space, wherever we are. And that could be maybe other members of our household or a significant other, or possibly even a dog or a baby. And so we want to be thinking about, okay, where can I go to record that's quiet as well as comfortable? Because you're probably going to be doing a lot of auditions every day. So that is, again, it's not about technology. It's determining where you're going to actually do your setup. Because failing that, to explain later, 95, I just want to let you know, failing that, you're going to be battling these outside noises, and you're going to be trying to edit it in what's called post-production. And that means basically logging into the software and trying to edit out the siren or remove it through equalizers or other sound and noise removal plugins, which is not the way you want to do it, because it's actually going to degrade the quality of your voice recording as well. If you're stripping out frequencies or certain, sounds that are coming, it's going to ruin your voice recording. So go for a quiet, clean sound first. And that all starts with the location. Then within the location, you might want to consider some simple soundproofing or absorption. Again, we've got a great YouTube video that we just published on this, and Randy walks all through the differences between kind of soundproofing and whatnot. So I'd check that out as a follow-up to this YouTube live here today. So from there, you've got kind of a quiet space. Let's even say that. I would say the minimum that you would need would be a microphone and then the software. Now, and again, for the record, we're talking minimums here. And for those who may not realize, I did go to school for audio engineering, and so there's some, there is some things, a thing or two I know about this space. But the microphone, if we're talking basics, I'd probably go with a USB microphone. And there's a number of them out there, and why you need a USB microphone versus some that you might see on stage or in like a professional recording studio is because it uses a USB connector that you can plug right in to your computer. And that's going to save you this other piece of equipment called an audio interface. So a USB microphone plugs right into your computer. The audio interface takes a different kind of microphone cable called an XLR cable. You've probably seen it. It has the 3 pins on the inside, and you can plug that into the audio interface, and then the audio interface goes into the computer. That is a more professional sound, but it's probably going to add somewhere in the neighborhood of like a couple $100 to that initial setup. So USB microphone, maybe $100. There's a good number of them out there. And then some software, which can range from free. If you're on a Mac, you can use GarageBand, to or on PC, there's Audacity. And then if you want to upgrade, there's Adobe Audition, which part of the Adobe Creative Cloud suite. So you can get some material, some software, I should say, from there. That's generally considered a great piece of software specifically for recording voiceovers as well. So those are probably, and again, we're talking minimum equipment. You might want to invest in some headphones, for listening and kind of playing back and just really making sure that none of those background noises or distractions are coming in. But that's what I would be looking at, and realize, once that recording is into your software, it's digital. And so you kind of, you get what you get at that point. And so, spend the time to get the right setup out here where it goes from your mouth into the microphone, hence the windscreen, hence the shock mount, also prevents against vibrations. And then the microphone, whether it's going directly into your computer with a USB cable, which hopefully everyone's familiar with the USB cable. They range from, printers to webcams to charging, smartphones, similar kind of cable that plugs right from the microphone in the computer. Or if you want to upgrade, you could actually go with an XLR cable for kind of more of again, professional condenser microphone, which maybe we could cover all about microphones in another session. So to explainer later, hopefully that was helpful for you. All righty, we are making progress, and you guys are hopefully having a good time. We're talking all about voiceover rates today. As well as some questions around marketing yourself, setting up your home studio. So we can keep rolling. It's Rickney from Instagram's asking, will making a second Instagram page be beneficial for my voice acting career? And it's Rickney, I'd actually say yes. If you want to think of it like your personal website and your professional website. Most people don't have a personal website. They just have, hey, here's my professional website. It's the same reason why, on, LinkedIn, generally people are keeping in, that's their professional social media account, where their personal one might be more on Facebook or perhaps on Instagram. But if you want to use Instagram as a marketing channel to find new clients, you could create a secondary one that's just dedicated all to that. All the photos are of you in your studio. Maybe, again, that's probably going to be the most common shot, or other stories or kind of projects that you've worked on with the client's permission, of course. That's probably going to be very different than like having it interspersed with, trips to the lake house and going camping, hiking, and random photos of the dog. That might just, that might be a little strange. So if you want to have a pure business account, then absolutely, I'd encourage you to set up a second one. Okay, so from YouTube live here, we have First Tenor 76. What can new accounts do to better compete? With more experienced members that have had more opportunity and time to build their resume? That's a great question, First Tenor. So new, because Voices has been around for going on almost 15 years. And when we started in 2005, that was our founding year. And so you're right, there are talent who've actually signed up in those early days and stuck with the platform over all these times. So you'll see people with hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews because they've been able to, win jobs over all of those years. And some have said, oh, arguably it's, more competitive now. There's more talent on the platform. There's actually a lot more guest members who have signed up, but not necessarily proportionally, more premium members who are quote unquote competing on the same type of jobs. So that's one thing I would set up. But I think it's a great observation that there are definitely talent who have built out their online profile, their portfolio, or their resume, as you've put it. So how might you compete with that? Okay, well, first off, I would fill out the profile as well and detailed as you can in an honest way of work that's either you've done or educational experience. And the education can sometimes be you took an acting class, you went to improv, maybe you, again, did acting or performance or theater, throughout your career. And maybe it was kind of on and off, and maybe you're pursuing it on the side. But still, I would articulate and detail all those in areas like your education and your experience as well. I think that's really going to help. If you've also landed some clients, it might not be the biggest brand, but I'd still list them out. You can actually list what we call your client list. You can jot those down. And again, you're just building out the credibility. So when a prospective client is scanning through, they actually see that you've got lots of samples, and all of the text-based aspect, that kind of resume portion, if you will, is complete. The other thing that you can do is actually upload multiple samples of your voice. Too many times, voice talent only upload one recording of their voice. So it might be, oh, okay, I'm interested in doing commercials, so I'm going to record one radio commercial demo, and that's it. There's no cost or charge to upload 10 or 20 samples if that's what you want to do. And think of this, every voiceover demo or sample that you upload, it actually puts you in another category within our search engine. It puts you in another category in kind of our directory, or sometimes we refer to as our explore feature on voices. So it's going to put you in more space, in more places and spaces. So having something like 5 or 10 demos, of work that give kind of this variety of work, I think that's a great place to get started. For instance, you can have a demo just for phone system recordings, and all it is are various phone system recordings. You can have because that's a category, a genre that we have on Voices. Separately is internet videos. Maybe there's a demo just for these explainer videos or short little promotional videos. So that would be another demo. All of these categories are actually listed on the top of the main navigation of Voices. So if you want some ideas or you want to listen to other people's demos, you can just click on that and it would bring you right to some search results where you can immediately start listening to some demos. So, I mean, my takeaway first, Tanner, would be, really try to have the most complete presentation as possible. Would be that first step. And then really landing that first job, I recognize that's going to be a real turning point, because then you go from no stars on the platform to finally having 5 stars. And that's going to make a big difference, because those 5 stars end up kind of following you around the platform, be it on our search results, on your profile. And when you're auditioning, it does show either, a yellow star and or it's just grayed out, meaning you haven't yet been hired. And that's kind of how we position and describe it to the clients. So do your best to get that first one. We find it kind of is a little bit like dominoes. They tend to kind of come in after that. So just wanted to give that to you. Focus on the profile first, and then landing that great first job after that. Okay, Hyatt is asking, when we post demos, are we allowed to record and post anything that we've done in the past, or should we get permission from the rights holder first? I would ask permission in this situation. It's a simple question that you can get an answer from by email. And so if you've the best time, I'll tell you, this is a bit of a secret, the best time to ask permission, if you can include their work or a small bit of their work in your voiceover demo, is when you deliver that job, because they're going to be happiest. The client's going to be happiest. Like, absolutely, Hyatt, thank you so much for sending this to me. this was awesome. And you go, hey, well, I'm glad you loved it so much. I'm really proud of the work too. Do you think I could use a small portion of it, call it 10 or 15 seconds in my next voiceover demo, or 60 seconds in a voiceover demo? And they're likely to go, absolutely, no worries. In some ways, it's actually giving them more publicity. Some clients view that as well, that you're promoting their brand. So there might be that angle to it. But the takeaway here is absolutely ask permission. Better to do that than them to kind of find out afterwards. And then there's two bad things that happen. One, they're going to ask you to take it down, and two, it's a little embarrassing because you're having to take it down. But the second item, which is worse, is they're not likely to hire you again because they would kind of feel like you went a little bit behind their back to post something that was really their rights, and if they paid for it, their intellectual property at that point, and you've posted it without their consent or their knowledge, they're not likely to hire you again. So I would go, I'd err on the side of caution and just ask up front. I don't think there's any harm in doing that. And certainly the time to ask is the moment that you deliver it and they say, yeah, it's really great. And I would say, that I would ask them at that point. Okay, Eric Heath Jam, we got a similar question as to one earlier around auditions. Is it better to send audio raw or processed? Okay, so let's unpack this for those of us here on YouTube Live. We're talking about auditions and quoting and kind of the home studio, but this question is about the audio. Are you gonna submit a raw, meaning kind of unedited, unprocessed, meaning no plugins or anything along those lines, or maybe should you do some of that to it? So I would say when you hear a client asking for a dry audition, not to add another term into the mix, but when a client's asking for a dry read or a dry audition, in that situation, they're asking just for no music and no sound effects. Okay. So dry audition is no music and no sound effects. A raw or unprocessed means you didn't compress it. There's no normalization. There's no equalizer. It's just kind of straight you right into the microphone. I think that might be a little problematic. And again, I would encourage you to ask this question in the community forum at community.voices.com and get the opinion from other pro talent on the voices.com platform who are auditioning 20 times a day, and they're going to have a perspective. When I speak to talent who are that active, they do have some presets for how they would process their voice. It kind of becomes their sound. And so that might be very light compression. And compression basically trims out kind of the peaks of the, of the sound wave, if you see that in your audio editor, and allows you to make the whole recording be perceived as sounding louder. And for whatever reason, people equate loudness to higher quality. And so you do want to have some light processing, some light compression on there. Likewise, you might want to consider some equalization. Maybe there's something in the recording or even in your voice that stands out, a certain frequency or a certain frequency spectrum or range that stands out, and it can sound a little harsh, where if you actually remove that in like a graphic equalizer, you'll see that you can kind of notch it out. That actually might make it sound a little bit lighter and airier. Often people roll off the bass frequencies like below 100 hertz or even 150 hertz because it'll actually almost sound like the recording's just lighter, almost like as if you're just stepping on your toes. So those are some presets that you might want to have for, hey, this is my radio sound. This is my explainer video sound. This is my phone system recording sound. And now, or you can just have one kind of for all. Don't feel like you got to create all these. But I would move towards having some processing that over time you can develop and create your own personal sound. And that's what kind of stands out. So play around with that. Hopefully that was helpful. But again, check out that community.voices.com. Ask these questions in there. That would be super helpful. All right. We've got some other questions just from also from that have come in from our team through other channels. Today is Voices office hours, and we're covering mostly about rates. So I'm just going to finish off with a couple rates questions here as well, which is where can I go to find out approximately how to set my quote? So for those who have joined us, I mentioned a couple times we have a great resource called voices.com/rates. Again, if we can put that in the chat one more time, for those that have joined us, that would be awesome. That's probably the best place to do so. There's other resources online. A couple quick Google searches will uncover those for you, and where you can see kind of rates from various people. But maybe if it's worthwhile, I'll just wheel out kind of what I had doodled up earlier, which was rates range between thinking about, is it a non-broadcast job, or is it a broadcast job? And if it's non-broadcast, it's priced on a per word or per finished minute. How long is this recording? And then if it's a broadcast, it's actually dependent on what's the size of the market. Is it just a local market, local radio or TV commercial? Is it national, or is this a global audience that's going to hear it? And then how long is this going to run for? Is it going to be on air for 13 weeks, which is a quarter? Is it going to be on air for a whole year? And then maybe they renew the license, or they want to use it and they just want to have a license or permission to use your voice in perpetuity, forever. And depending on whether it's just radio or TV or web or any combination thereof, that's what's going to drive your prices. So that's kind of the theory behind the page, voices.com/rates, that you can check out. And there's also a downloadable PDF there for you that might be helpful for you. Awesome. Do clients ever hire talent who quote above their original budget? Absolutely. It's interesting. We see this happen. Sometimes clients misprice a project. They think, oh, I didn't realize that usage, how the voice is being used, is the key factor that drives my commercial and how much that's going to cost. So as soon as a client realizes, because they might come in and like, oh, it seems like it's a short script, it's only $200, and then the talent who are in the know, who've been working in the business a while, recognize that it's usage that drives price. And once they're informed of that, and one of the best ways to do that is to quote outside the original budget, clients will realize, oh, wow, all the pros seem to be in the $1,000 range, not the $500 range. So it absolutely does happen. We've done kind of, again, the analysis on this, and to determine kind of where is that price. And more often than not, it's in the upper half of the range, and definitely kind of goes often goes on the outside, meaning on the, above the actual stated budget. It rarely goes, and those who might be tempted to go, oh, well, I'm going to win this because I'm going to underquote. I'm going to go under the original budget. It raises so many red flags in the client's mind. You're immediately signaling to them, whether you intended it or not, that I'm not a professional, that maybe I don't know how to use my equipment. I maybe have to hire somebody over. So I can't charge you a lot for the voiceover because I actually have to pay someone else, or I got to need help, or I'm going to have to go into a studio and then surprise the client with a studio fee later. Nobody wants any of those kind of surprises. So quoting below just kind of sends off some red flags, and it almost becomes like that proxy for like, well, low quote from a voice is like a little too good to be true. And you know what they say, it probably is. Maybe there might be something else there. So I think we want to avoid that. Stick within the range. If you want to go smack in the middle or on the upper, I think over time you'll feel more confident when you're winning jobs, and you'll be more confident to charge within the range and possibly even above, like the question came in. So how should I quote for projects that have a really large word count, like audiobooks? This is a great question. Andrew, if you can just put that link in from the blog as well too. I know we've got a blog post that really goes through this. This is where you need almost this word count concept, like a price per word. So when a project gets over, let's call it, 1,000 words or maybe 2,000 words, and you're realizing this isn't just 5 or 6 pages of script, like you're reading 100 pages of script. And there have been projects that have been, the largest one that's gone through Voices that I can recall is 887,000 words for one voice talent. There have been projects that have been million word projects, but it's been multiple talent in multiple languages. So you really need to know when it gets into, let's just call it a big project, which I know is a little subjective, but let's call it over 10,000 words. you really need to be thinking, okay, what's my price per word? And it might be something like 10 cents or 15 cents or 5 cents. Again, it's up to you. But when you get that, then you can very quickly determine a quote for the client, and you're not going to miscalculate by realizing, oh my goodness, I've totally underquoted. I said $2,000 and it's taken me 5 weeks to do this. And then I have all the editing afterwards. It's like a 10-week project. You definitely did not quote enough. So knowing your price per word is going to help you avoid those situations for those big projects. Check out that blog post. That's going to be a great one for you. Before we wrap up here today, I just would love nothing more than if you guys can do a couple things for me. Thanks for giving a thumbs up to all that have. So I'd appreciate it if you could do that. It encourages me and the team to keep putting on these YouTube Live for you, answering your questions on the last Friday of every month. But you don't have to wait till the last Friday of every month to hear from professionals and the people at Voices to point out some resources. One thing you can do is check out our brand new community forum. It's at community.voices.com. And Andrew's been really helpful in the chat. You guys, all the messages have been coming from him. And he's one of the moderators on the forum. He'd love to hear from you and answer some of those questions in that place. So that's the community forum. One last time, community.voices.com. Go check it out. You can sign up for free and get a ton of hear from experts and other talent in the community. All right, my name's David Ciccarelli. Again, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Voices. This has been Voices Office Hours, talking all about rates. And hopefully you guys learned a ton today. We'll catch you up again at the end of the next month. Thanks again. Have a great day.